Welcome back, everyone. Today we're doing a deep dive into, a movie called Steelyard Blues from 1973. Yeah, it's kind of a counterculture comedy, a little bit of a heist film. And, we've got a pretty interesting movie review to help guide us today. So let's dive in and see what we can uncover.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to get the feel of a whole movie. Just from one person's perspective. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. So this movie, it's about this group of lovable misfits, including Donald Sutherland playing an ex-con.
Yeah.
And Jane Fonda is in it too.
Wow.
A prostitute. And they're trying to escape society's rules, and their big idea is to restore an old seaplane to get away. So right away, this isn't going to be your typical, escape to a tropical island kind of movie.
Yeah, definitely not. It sounds pretty funny, though.
It does. It's like this very lighthearted rebellion,
It is. Just this whimsical desire to just fly away from everything.
And it makes you wonder if that makes their rebellion more or less powerful than like a straight drama,
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. I mean, it definitely makes it more relatable, doesn't it? Like, okay, maybe I wouldn't steal a seaplane, but I can understand that urge to break free,
Exactly. And this review says that we should really keep an eye on Boyle's performance as Eagle in the movie. Apparently, he kind of steals the show. Oh, and it also talks about the visuals of the film, like how it's filmed in this really gritty industrial setting with a rundown steel yard and these really vibrant personalities that really burst out of the gloom.
So their energy is kind of fighting against the setting almost.
Yeah, exactly. And the rundown seaplane itself becomes like this really important symbol of their hope.
Interesting.
Even though it's rusty and barely holding together.
Right.
It shows how much they want something more, this crazy dream they're all holding on to.
I see. And the music too, right? Like you can't forget that.
Oh yeah. The music is supposed to be like this bluesy, folky kind of sound that just screams anti-establishment,
Yeah, very 70s.
Totally. And it really emphasizes that carefree attitude, almost like a soulful soundtrack for their whole rebellion.
I bet the music really helps you feel what they're feeling. Now, the review does say that the film has kind of a loose structure and the tone is a little uneven and some things might feel dated now. So, some people might not like that. But maybe that's part of what makes it so charming.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about that. Does a film need to be super polished to be good?
Yeah.
Or can those imperfections actually make it better? That's something for you listening to think about. What do you think? Would you still want to watch it?
It's true. Sometimes those rough edges make things more memorable.
Right. So we've got these misfits with a crazy plan and a really cool visual style, but what are some of the bigger ideas this film is trying to explore?
Well, it's pretty obvious that it's about rebelling against society.
Yeah.
It's got that classic 1970s counterculture vibe. That whole idea of breaking free from conventions and questioning authority.
Yeah.
And forging your own path. But it's not all anger and defiance. It's got this really playful energy, too, almost like the best way to rebel is to laugh in the face of everything.
That's interesting. And I guess that ties into the idea of escape, too. Not just escaping physically,
Right.
but escaping all those expectations and pressures of the world. Like they're creating their own little world with their own rules.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder, what would your escape be? What would you need to get away from? And how would you do it?
Oh, that's a good question. I think we all have those moments where we feel stuck, right?
We do, for sure. Another thing the film focuses on is how important camaraderie is. These characters are misfits, but they find strength in each other. They're a family, and they're all bound by this shared desire to break free.
So it sounds like this movie is about a lot of things. Humor, rebellion, a cool setting, and finding your people.
Yeah, and we're just scratching the surface here. I can't wait to get into some more of the details, like how they use different filmmaking techniques to tell the story.
Me too. Let's do it. There's a lot more to uncover about Steelyard Blues and what it says about, what it means to be human. It's funny how we always hear that phrase, grounded in reality, but this film seems to ground itself in absurdity,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
The review said that Donald Sutherland and Jane Fonda bring a lot of emotional honesty to their characters, even though the plot is so crazy.
Yeah, it really shows how talented they are. They can give these characters so much depth, even in this kind of comedic and surreal setting.
Right. It's you still need that human element for the story to work.
Absolutely.
Oh, and the cinematography is really interesting, too. The review talked about how they captured that gritty industrial feel and how that contrasts with the characters' personalities.
Yeah, it's the setting is a character itself.
Yeah.
That steel yard with all its harsh lines represents the society they're trying to get away from.
Yeah.
And then you have the character's energy, their zest for life, and it clashes with the bleakness of the setting.
It's like a visual metaphor for their struggles.
Exactly.
And then there's the seaplane, the thing they're pinning all their hopes on. It's not just a way to escape, but it symbolizes everything they want, their dreams taking flight.
It's funny how this beat-up old plane becomes the symbol for their hopes and dreams. Like it's falling apart, but they see so much potential in it.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if the filmmakers were trying to say something about the resilience of the human spirit, you know?
Maybe. That's a good point.
That actually connects to something else the review mentioned about how the tone of the film is kind of uneven.
Oh, right.
Maybe it's supposed to reflect how their journey is.
Makes sense. It's not always a smooth ride, is it?
Definitely not. Like there are moments of joy and then setbacks and then you just don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, and maybe that's why the film feels so real. You know, it's not afraid to show the ups and downs.
Okay, so we've got this visually stunning movie full of these interesting characters, this rebellious spirit, and these themes of escape and friendship. But like you said, the review also pointed out some criticisms, like a loose structure, some dated things that some people might not like.
Yeah, but that's where things get really interesting, I think. Are those things actually bad? Or do they add to the film's unique style?
I see what you mean.
Like the loose structure could be a reflection of the characters. They're free-spirited. They don't follow the rules.
So the film is kind of rebelling against traditional storytelling, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those dated elements, well, instead of being a problem, they show us what things were like in the 70s.
Like little time capsules.
Yeah. So it's like double the rebellion.
Rebelling against society and rebelling against art.
Exactly. So whether you see those things as flaws or as part of the charm, it's up to you. It all depends on your perspective.
It makes me wonder if those imperfections are what make the film so good.
What do you mean?
Like, it's not trying to be perfect. It's just being itself.
You know, that's a good lesson for all of us, I think. Like, embracing our imperfections can be a form of rebellion, too.
Yeah, that's true. So to recap, we have this quirky film that breaks the rules. It's about escaping expectations, finding your people, and going after your dreams.
And it does all that with a lot of humor, reminding us that sometimes laughter is the best way to deal with a crazy world.
I don't know about you, but I'm really intrigued. Are you ready to go even deeper into Steelyard Blues? So we've talked a lot about Steelyard Blues now, about the characters, the themes, that great setting. But as we finish up this deep dive, what do you think the big takeaway is? What do we think about after the movie's over?
Well, one thing that makes it so interesting is how it's both a product of its time, you know, the 70s, but it also tells a story that still feels relevant today.
Yeah, I see that.
It's a snapshot of that counterculture movement with the desire for freedom and rejecting conformity and all that. But those themes are timeless, right?
Yeah.
Like friendship and escape
Yeah.
and trying to achieve your dreams.
Yeah, totally. Like we all want something more sometimes. Like when you feel stuck and want to break free from whatever's holding you back, whether it's expectations or a boring job or just daily life. We all have those Steelyard Blues moments.
Right. And I think the movie gives us a way to escape. Like we get to watch these characters, even though they're not perfect, just reject the world and do things their own way, even if it means flying away in a broken seaplane.
Yeah, it's not just about getting away, though. It's about the journey and that sense of being together. Like they're misfits, but they found their people. And they're facing everything together with laughter and some defiance, too.
That's so important. The film really celebrates those connections. Like finding your people and helping each other through tough times, even when you have crazy plans.
Yeah, it makes you think maybe that's the real rebellion. Not just rejecting society, but finding people who accept you for who you are and support your dreams no matter how weird they seem.
Yeah, that's a great point. Maybe that's the message of Steelyard Blues, to embrace who you are, find your people, and go after those dreams, even if they're not typical.
It's kind of inspiring, isn't it?
It is.
I'm left feeling hopeful, a little nostalgic even, and I really appreciate people who are different and break the mold.
And maybe it sparked that feeling in all of us, to question things, to embrace our own quirks, and to look for those unusual paths that make us happy.
So if you ever feel those Steelyard Blues coming on, just remember those characters and their crazy seaplane plan. Remember that laughing can be a form of rebellion, that your friends can help you achieve any dream. And sometimes the best adventures are the ones you don't expect.
And maybe you'll even want to watch Steelyard Blues yourself to see how those characters take off.
That's all the time we have for today, but thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll see you next time.